But from ages 32 to 52, exactly 21 years. 20
Got a dime and a two-seat.
Not a bad coach by any means. Having a long, illustrious career as a coach in the NBA is one thing. But from ages 32 to 52, until he got his first head coaching job, from 32 to 52, he was an assistant. As soon as he turned 53, the Chicago Bulls came calling. And this was a couple of seasons being a defensive minded coach for the Boston Celtics when they went to like 2 straight finals, if I'm not mistaken. Then Chicago comes calling. 62-20 his first season. 50-16 his next season. Because now when you call Mike Malone, it's gonna look so weird. It's gonna look like he's your last option, and that just doesn't look good for the New York Knicks at this time. So the New York Knicks have their players change the game. And if the Pacers pull out the unthinkable, I could say Rick Carlisle. And if you look at Rick Carlisle's resume and you compare it to Tom Thibodeau, and you think to yourself, how is it that Rick Carlisle, who some would consider a coach that has been in the league just as long as Tom Thibodeau, and he's having success with a young, exuberant, exciting team in the Indiana Pacers, especially not just this playoff run.
Got a dime and a two-seat.
Everything we need to know about Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle and the Pacers saw something in Pascal that said, you know what? He's the missing piece in what we're trying to build. Rick Carlisle started coaching in 1989 versus Tom Thibodeau. To 42 to start coaching. Before that, he was an assistant coach. So it took Thibodeau 20-something years versus 10 or 11 for Rick Carlisle. Now, I'm using Rick Carlisle as a comparison simply because of they're not the same age. Or are they the same age? Am I messing up 2 straight points? 67, 65. So they're not the same age. They're around the same if we're going to put it in simple terms, they're in the same age group, but they're not the same age. They're around the same age. So I can use Rick Carlisle as a, comparison simply because we've seen them coach against each other. And you guys saw the huge discrepancy in coaching. If Rick Carlisle was the head coach of the New York Knicks, they would be in the finals as well. If Tom Thibodeau was the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, he had the same exact roster, I think they would have been able to get to the playoffs, but I don't think they would have been able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals last season or this season. That roster is good enough with the type of coach that Tom Thibodeau is, because they are defensive-minded. And maybe I could be wrong, because if you look at the Pacers, the style of play, they have some good defenders. Literally, if you look at OKC and you compare that roster to the Indiana Pacers, you would choose OKC to win the series simply because they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Has like multiple 10 to 20 plus 30-point games, add a 40-point game in that throughout their playoff run, versus Tyrese Halliburton only has like 2 or 3. So when I'm looking at the Pacers and I'm saying to myself, could Tom Thibodeau do better with that roster versus the roster that he had? Because if you ring off some of the, outside of Tyrese Halliburton, you got Mathurin, who's a good defender. You got Nembhard, who's a good defender. You got Naismith. You got Siakam, who we know is a decent defender. And you got Miles Turner, who we, of course, know is a defender as well. So I have to use Rick Carlisle as a comparison, because what Rick Carlisle excels at is what Tom Thibodeau lacks at, and that's why he was fired. Player development. Need I say more about Rick Carlisle? Now, Luka was Luka before he got to the league, but let's be clear. Hindsight 2020. The reason why Rick Carlisle, if I remember correctly, Rick Carlisle quit the Dallas Mavericks job. I don't think he got fired. He quit because of Luka. And that's bad, because Jason Kidd was literally bumping heads with Luka as well. And maybe Dallas came to the realization that we fired our championship head coach. He brought us our first championship, Rick Carlisle. We saw how innovative he was. And for him to last in different eras in the NBA is the reason why Tom Thibodeau has gotten fired. But back to my point, Dallas came to the realization that probably it is Luka. We can't fire Jason Kidd, who's developed into a great head coach, and Rick Carlisle, who, look at what Carlisle has done in such a short time in Indiana. In 4 seasons, 2 finals appearances in the Eastern Conference. Let me be clear. 2 finals appearances of the Eastern Conference. 2 Eastern Conference finals appearances. Let me be clear. And 1 finals appearance in 4 years. So back to Tom Thibodeau. Runs his starters into the ground. Cannot develop players. Cannot adjust on the fly. If you give him a roster, he will get that roster just because of his coaching ability in terms of defense. But if you look at the Knicks, a lot of people say they overachieved. No, the Knicks underachieved, and that's why he got fired. And the Knicks organization has come to the realization that Tom Thibodeau is good enough to get us to the playoffs, but when it's time to make those coaching adjustments, he's not a good coach in terms of coaching adjustments. And you guys saw it in the playoffs. And that's why I'm using Rick Carlisle, because Rick Carlisle has shown that he's an innovative coach, even with being in the league as long as he has, and seeing different eras, and not being that coach that just want to stick to his ways. He's innovative, and he's showing it. If you look at that Dallas Mavericks roster, which was a stacked roster, I hate when people say that team wasn't a super team. It was a super team. And it's no coincidence that they win that championship and the next season they missed the playoffs. That team was built for a championship. They were going to win a championship that season or never win one in the history of their franchise, because I don't think they, in the foreseeable future, with Cooper Flag, let me give him a year or so and see how he plays. I don't think they'll be able to win one. With Luka, they were close. They were on the doorstep. But I like Rick Carlisle's coaching ability. He's showing that he's innovative. He's showing that he can communicate with the young guys. And if you guys haven't done your research, do your research on how he builds camaraderie within that organization, with that team. You need to start taking a look at Rick Carlisle. And let's be clear, Rick Carlisle is showing that he can develop players, because Tyrese Halliburton isn't a superstar, but as long as he stays up on a Rick Carlisle's wing, he can develop into a superstar. And it's coming, because if you look at it, De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton was on the same team. Sacramento is a abysmal organization, terrible organization. They need to send that franchise somewhere else, because they have Fox and Halliburton, and not be able to develop those two into like the second coming of Steph and Clay is beyond me. And not even Steph and Clay. They could have been they own thing, the Bash brothers, the Speed brothers, the Pass brothers, whatever the case may be. But Rick Carlisle, compared to Tom Thibodeau, is night and day. If you ask any player in the NBA, who would you rather have as a head coach, I'm pretty sure not 10 out of 10 players would say Rick Carlisle. After this season is done, if you do a poll, a summer poll for the NBA players, out of Tom Thibodeau and Rick Carlisle. And this is not a knock on Tom Thibodeau. Well, it is a knock on Tom Thibodeau, because it's the reason why he got fired. He can't develop players. He can't make adjustments. Like, when I was watching the Knicks play, every victory they had, it took way too much for them to win. Now, I'm not saying win easily every time, but when you win, it should feel like a win. It shouldn't feel like you were in a 10-round fight with Floyd Mayweather, trying to box Floyd Mayweather. No, it shouldn't feel like that. It should feel like a victory. And when I was watching them, they were just too slow. It wasn't there. And a lot of people try to blame Jalen Brunson. No, Jalen Brunson plays his heart out. He plays the best. I'm telling you, if Rick Carlisle was the head coach, we would be talking about the Knicks probably winning the championship. So, Tom Thibodeau, where will he coach next? Because he's going to get another head coaching job. Now, whatever organization that is with, well, I think all of the head coaching jobs are, well, I don't think he'll be able to get a head coach. He'll probably be an assistant. But what head coach? I was thinking Mike Malone. I don't know why they're going all trying to steal coaches away. Let's talk about the Knicks organization right now. Now, James Dolan has been pretty quiet these last couple of seasons, which is amazing, because that's something we don't get to say all the time. He's more of the, this is my franchise, I want to do what I want to do. But as you guys see, when he takes a step back and let the head coach, be a head coach, the organization becomes great. Or it is run better than, when he has his fingers in everything. Because Tom Thibodeau was able to get them to the playoffs, the Eastern Conference Finals, in like 20-something years. But that's just the ceiling for him. He's not going to be able to get you a championship, because he doesn't know. Because at this point in time, we can't say he knows, because if he did know, he would have got further. He doesn't know how to get into that space for his players, tap into that untapped potential, get into that untapped potential for his players. Because if you look at it, Karl-Anthony Towns has some potential that is out of this world, that he has still not tapped in, because he hasn't had the coach and he hasn't had the franchise. If he had a Phil Jackson, if he had a Rick Carlisle, or Eric Spoelstra, a Jason Kidd, a coach that could communicate to him and get him to that next level, because Karl-Anthony Towns is a Hall of Fame caliber player. He should be on his way to the Hall of Fame. But as you guys know, it's only so much that a player can do if he's not a LeBron, if he's not a Kevin Garnett, if he's not a Dwight Howard, if he's not a Michael Jordan. Because, and I'm just naming most of the players that came out of high school that are Hall of Fame players. If he is not as talented as that, and I name MJ simply because once MJ decided to take that leap and take it upon himself to, adjust his game and go for it, he went for it and he won 6 championships after realizing that. And not many players are like that. And I'm talking about dominant. And I'm using KG, and I said KG simply because KG came straight out of high school to a terrible franchise. But he was just so good that he was able to get an MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and won championship. Now, just like, back to my original point, it's the Knicks organization and James Dolan. Now, me personally, I was saying this all throughout my coverage of the Knicks in the playoffs against I think the whole entire series against the Pacers, even the Celtics. I said, Tom Thibodeau is going to be fired. Tom Thibodeau needs to be fired. And who they need to look at is Mike Malone. So the simple fact that they're looking at all of these head coaches are trying to call these head coaches that are already locked in and under contract with the organizations that they're already within, and they're getting denied left and right. When Mike Malone is literally there looking for a head coaching job. And that's the coach who can get this team to the NBA Finals. Because it's the Eastern Conference, it's not the Western Conference. And a lot of people forget and overlook the fact that Mike Malone is good at developing. Oh, yeah. Mike Malone is definitely good at developing players. He turned Jokic into Nikola Jokic. If you guys remember, Jokic and Jusuf Nurkic were on the same team. This was around the time nobody knew that Nurkic or Jokic, which one? Which one do we choose? They decided Nikola Jokic. Can you imagine if they would have kept Nurkic and developed Nurkic into Jokic? Because now, Nurkic, I think if I'm not mistaken, he was traded to Portland. And then not only that, Mike Malone saw something in Aaron Gordon that said, you know what, you'll fit with this team. Not only that, they took a chance on Michael Porter Jr. They took a chance on Jamal Murray, even after the injuries. So player development for Mike Malone, he's already shown me that he's an intuitive coach, ingenuitive coach, can develop players. Now, I don't know what this rumbling is in Denver talking about, the head coach and the president of basketball operations, they just couldn't get on the same page, so we fired both of them. No, it had to be because Nikola Jokic did not like either one. No franchise is firing a head coach that just won them a championship and you have a MVP caliber player. So, taking a couple steps back at a situation and looking at it, I'm saying to myself, it was definitely Jokic who had his hand in the firing of that coach. Because can you imagine if LeBron James just won a championship with a coach like Mike Malone? Not talking about Darvin Ham, Frank Vogel, Luke Walton. No, I'm not talking about a coach. No player's going to go over the bat for those type of coaches. If it's a Spoelstra, a Carlisle, Phil Jackson, of course, a player is going to say, no, you can't fire him. If he's going, I'm going. Mike Malone, I look at Mike Malone in the same way I look at it. Mike Malone is respected. He's respectable. So that lets me know that Jokic had a lot to do with that firing. So Mike Malone should have been the first on their list. I'm not sure why because now when you call Mike Malone, it's gonna look so weird. It's gonna look like he's your last option, and that just doesn't look good for the New York Knicks at this time. So the New York Knicks have yet again come, because this is like 5-6 coaches that they're calling organizations about. Like, why are you calling, in terms of everyday worker terms, why are you calling other stores managers, and why is a store calling other stores managers or calling to inquire about other stores managers trying to pry them away? That's like somebody working at Kohl's calling somebody at Gap saying, hey, we have an opening, are you interested? And you're not, it's no incentive in that for an organization to give up. If I'm not mistaken, they were talking about the Chicago Bulls, Billy Donovan. You got the Mavericks, Jason Kidd. I'm Udoka, Houston, Minnesota, Atlanta. Why are you calling all of these coaches, these organizations trying to inquire about these coaches? That's crazy. And it's insane. But that goes to show you how delusional and out of touch the New York Knicks are. Not only did they fire Tom Thibodeau before they even had another head coach lined up, I'm thinking they're going to fire him and literally sign Mike Malone less than 24 hours later. Because Mike Malone is a better head coach than Tom Thibodeau. That's proven. He's a champion. He developed Nikola Jokic into what we know Nikola Jokic to be today, an MVP. Now, granted, Nikola Jokic probably already had that skill in him, but I don't think with any other coach, any other organization, I don't think he would have been an MVP. And I don't think he would have had all these pacifiers that pacify him constantly into winning these MVPs that he don't deserve. Can you imagine a MVP being a 5th seed? Normally MVPs are 1 through 3, at least the 4th seed. And when I saw him win an MVP as a 5th seed, when Joel Embiid had that struggle with Ben Simmons and won the scoring champ and didn't get the MVP, that's when I knew the MVP was a joke. And that's when I knew the race was a joke, because the following year, you guys know what they did. They gave it to Joel Embiid when he should have won it the previous year, when he had a better record, and although it was like a couple of games, but he was a higher seed in his conference. And then he did it with the same amount of, roadblocks as Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic didn't have Murray for the most part of that MVP season, and neither did Joel Embiid have Ben Simmons due to injuries and stuff. So, not only that, Mike Malone drafted Nikola Jokic. He was there from the beginning. So these people, we're going to see next season too. And probably Jokic is so far ahead in his game that it doesn't matter who's his head coach. But we're going to see how well the Denver Nuggets do next season. And that's going to tell me everything I need to know about Mike Malone as a head coach. Not only that, Nikola Jokic as a player. And this is crazy because everybody saw this coming, but we didn't know they didn't have a head coach on speed dial.